Introduces you to the single needle lock stitch machine. A commonly found SNLS, that is single needle lock stitch machine, has the below parts. Spool stand. This supports the spool rests and provides the space for spool thread guides. Spool rest. This supports the spool which supplies the top thread, also known as needle thread. The spool rest has a spindle through which the spools of lesser length are inserted. The base of the spool rest has a flexible plastic cone. This helps in securing cones of higher capacity. Spool stand thread guide. These are circular ceramic guides having a circular slot. The top thread is taken from the spool and threaded through these ceramic guides. The position of these guides are kept directly above the spools so that the thread unwinds under tension. Bobbin winding tensioner. This part is situated in the top right corner near the spool stand base. This tension device consists of steel plates and springs. Tightening the spring creates more tension in the thread which passes between the two plates. Bobbin winding assembly. This part consists of a metal tongue and a rotating shaft. Empty bobbins are slotted in the rotating shaft. Bobbin thread coming through the bobbin winding tensioner is manually wound for few turns on the empty bobbin. The metal tongue is pushed forward into the empty bobbin. When the sewing machine operates, the shaft rotates, pulling the thread and winding on the empty bobbin. When the bobbin is fully wound, the thread pushes the metal tongue back, disengaging the drive. Spool or needle thread package. This contains the thread which finally goes through the needle. Oil spray indicator. This shows the lubrication oil level. Pre-tensioners. These contain two small metal discs and a small tension spring, applying little amount of tension on the needle thread. Pressure foot pressure adjustment screw. Rotating the screw manipulates the tension of pressure foot as the screw is connected with the pressure bar spring. Clockwise rotation of screw contracts the spring, increases the tension, whereas anti-clockwise rotation reduces the tension. Take-up lever. Thread take-up is one of the thread control links. After the looper or bobbin hook contacts the needle thread at the scarf point, it pulls a loop of needle thread in order to make a stitch tie. So, it requires the thread to be free and quick. The thread take-up executes this function. It provides the thread freely to form the loop of the needle thread during one cycle of its motion, and also pulls up the loop after the hook or looper releases the needle loop to form the stitch tie. Disc type tensioner. This is the main tension element for needle thread. Tension is imparted by tightening the spring by rotating the screw. The spring compresses the disc between which the needle thread passes. The needle bar. This moves perpendicularly when the machine operates. At the end of the needle bar is a groove in which the needle butt is housed. The needle. The needle is one of the main sewing elements that have an eye through which the needle thread is passed. The function of the needle is to penetrate the fabric and take the needle thread below for stitch formation. Sliding plate. This is given so that the operator can slide it and visually inspect the bobbin case position. Presser foot. This keeps fabric pressed while stitch formation takes place and allows the fabric to pass under after stitching. Needle plate. This has slots for needle hole and feed dog. The stitch length regulator. It allows us to control the stitches per inch by either increasing or decreasing the stitch length. Back tack lever. It is used at the start and end of the sewing operation, where we need the reverse motion so that stitches will fall on the same portion again to reinforce the stitching. Clutch motor. It provides the power for the sewing machine. Knee lifter. It allows us to temporarily lift the pressure foot so that the material can be manipulated. The operator has to keep pushing the lifter with his knee till the time it is required. The V belt. It connects the driving pulley of the clutch motor to the driven pulley connected to the main shaft that is housed in the sewing machine arm. Motor pulley. It is the driving pulley attached with the clutch motor shaft. Pedal or accelerator. It controls the speed at which the clutch motor operates. This in turn affects the sewing speed. The table. It is where the entire machine head is housed. The table is given with a handy inbuilt scale for measuring purposes. Motor on off switch. It is beneath the table as a console. Hand lifter. It is generally located behind the vertical arm of the sewing machine. By lifting this, the pressure foot can be lifted for the amount of time. This differs from the knee lifter, as once the lifter is lifted, the pressure bar and pressure foot will not come down till the lifter is manually pressed down. Thread take-up spring. This is also known as check spring, which acts in conjunction with the thread take-up lever to maintain correct tension during looping. This is the single needle lock stitch sewing machine, which is also known as SNLS machine. This is the most widely used sewing machine in the apparel industry and also as well as in the home sewing sector. This machine is also known as the universal sewing machine because of its ability to construct most of the garment types, and also most of the seam types can be constructed through this machine. This machine has a table. In the table you have a cutout in which the sewing machine rests. This is the sewing machine bed. The sewing machine has a spool stand which has two spool rests, which has two spindles. The thread cones or spools will be entered through this, and the thread will be taken through these guides, which are of either plastic or of ceramic in nature. Now we will see the rest of the parts and their functions. These are the on off switches which control the sewing motor. Upon pressing the on switch, the motor will start. Upon switching it off, it comes to a rest. This is the motor which drives the entire sewing machine. This motor at the end of its shaft has a pulley. The pulley has a V belt. This V belt goes to the top of the machine and goes to the pulley connected to the machine head. This is the treadle. Upon pressing the treadle forward, the machine starts to run. This is the knee lifter. Upon pressing it, the needle pressure foot bar goes up and down. Now we are going to look at the bobbin winding assembly. Generally, the bobbin thread goes to the spool rest. From the spool, the thread is taken upwards, taken through the guide, taken down, again through one more guide hole, through the bobbin tension winding assembly. This bobbin goes into this shaft and the thread is manually wound for one or two windings. Then you push this forward, start the machine, Now you find the bobbin is thread is getting wound in the bobbin. Once the bobbin fills, this mechanical element will disengage and it will stop the bobbin at its full capacity. This is the machine hand wheel. This machine hand wheel is generally driven through the motor power, whereas whenever the operator wants to make a half stitch or a full stitch at any turns, he can pull the machine hand wheel down towards them. This will make the needle to go up and down and stitches being formed manually. When the operator pulls the hand wheel down towards themselves, the needle bar and the needle goes down, and after another half rotation of the hand wheel it comes up. Thus a single stitch can be manually formed. This is the oil spray indicator, which will indicate the levels of sewing machine lubrication oil. This dial is known as stitch regulator. What it does is that if you turn the dial towards 4, the highest point, it will give longer stitches, whereas if you turn towards 0, it will start to give smaller stitches. Now it influences something called stitches per inch. Generally in men's shirts and all, you will find 12 to 14 stitches in an inch. That will correspond somewhere around 2.5 in this dial. This is called as a back tack lever. This lever, when pressed down, reverses the direction of the stitch. This is generally used at the start of any sewing and at the end of one sewing cycle. This gives stitches on the same place again, so that you get reinforcement. Now we are looking at the needle bar and the pressure bar assembly in the sewing machine. This vertical rod is called as the pressure bar. This pressure bar has a spring. Now this spring is not tightly wound. When you want to increase the pressure of the pressure bar, you have to loosen this knob and tighten this. Once you start tighten, you see that the spring has tightened. Now this bar is called as a needle bar. The needle bar goes below the needle. This is the needle, is housed in the bottom of the needle bar. This is the pressure bar. The bottom of the pressure bar has a hinged pressure foot. This needle bar moves up and down vertically, and the up and down motion of the needle bar is controlled by a cam which is on the inside, and the cam and the needle bar are linked by this connecting rod. Needle, needle bar, pressure foot bar, pressure foot bar tension spring, pressure foot bar tension adjustment screw. Now we are going to look at the cam movement. When the machine rotates, you find the cam also rotates. The cam is connected with the needle bar through a connecting rod, and also the take up lever also is connected to the same cam. Thus the cam controls the timing of both needle bar and take up lever. This is the disc type tensioning device which imparts tension to the needle thread. This device consists of two metal plates which are compressed by a spring. The tension can be either increased or decreased by turning this screw. If you turn it inwards, the spring compresses the metal plates more and thus increases the tension on needle thread, whereas if you want looser tension, you rotate it anti-clockwise. This device also has a check spring. You can see this spring here. This spring is called as check spring. The needle thread goes through this and through like this. This also adds a small element of tension. This and these two are guides for the needle thread to go through. This is a pre-tensioner device. This also has two metal plates and a small spring, and the tension can be either reduced by rotating anti-clockwise or increased by rotating clockwise. This finger is called as a take-up lever. The take-up lever has a eye or a slot through which the needle thread goes through and brought down to the needle. The function of take-up lever is that it is synchronized with the movement of the needle bar. When the stitching action takes place, the sewing lock actually takes place, extra thread has to be supplied. That function is taken over by the take-up lever. This is known as permanent lifter. If we push it upward and leave it there, you find that the pressure foot bar and the pressure foot assembly has gone up, and it will stay up until we again release it back down. This D-shaped plate is known as throat plate or needle plate. It has a hole inside which is called as a needle hole. It allows the needle to go down and also come up. It also has slots through which you find the feed dog to come up and go down. It allows for the movement of feed dog. The throat plate also has guidelines like quarter inch, half an inch, 3/4 of an inch, 1 inch, which will allow the machinist to align the seams. Also, there is one more squarish plate which is known as a sliding plate. You can slide it and look below at the mechanisms whenever required. Now we are going to look at the feed dog motion. Now you look at the feed dog is fixed onto a bar, and the bar is fixed to this shaft which is called as a rocking shaft. When the machine works, you look at the feed dog movement. The feed dog actually makes a elliptical movement. This is called as the shuttle. The shuttle houses the bobbin and bobbin case inside, and this part is known as the shuttle hook, which eventually catches the needle thread and makes a loop. This device is the underbed trimmer, which will be given only in underbed trimming machines. This is the sewing machine lubrication oil tank. Mineral oils will be generally used for lubrication. This goes to the parts of sewing machine through wicking action. This diagram is of a single needle lock stitch. The upper thread slacks at the position where the needle slightly goes up from its lowest position, which is around 2 mm from the lowest position, and the blade point of the outer hook catches the loop shaped upper thread and pulls in the upper thread. The upper thread, which is pulled in by the blade point of the outer hook, is separated at the inner hook thread, separating the portion so that the upper thread on the needle side is separated to the rear side of the inner hook, and the upper thread on the cloth side is separated to the right side of the inner hook. The outer hook rotates while pulling in the upper thread around the periphery of the bobbin case containing the lower thread set in inner hook. The thread take-up lever supplies upper thread which is necessary to rotate around the inner hook. Suppose that the inner hook is a human being and it looks like doing rope skipping. Immediately after the upper thread has rotated around the inner hook, the thread take-up lever lifts the upper thread and the upper thread is interlaced with the lower thread. The stitch is formed when the upper thread lifts the lower thread and the cloth is fed at the end. Next, the needle comes down, penetrates the cloth to continue to A. Now we are going to look at the threading of single needle Lockstitch machine. The needle thread in a spool goes onto the spool rest or the spool holder taken via the thread guides taken down to the metallic guide. Insert the thread from the back side through the hole. Take it again to the back side, insert again from the back and take it to the front. The needle thread now goes through the metallic guide from the back to the front. Take it again to the back, through the front, take it out. Now the needle thread goes via the pre-tensioning device guide hole through the two discs through the bottom guide. Now it goes via the main tensioning disc device round in between the tensioning disc, goes round and take it above the check spring. Take it through this metallic guide, through this guide again, then from the right to the left insert the thread through the take up lever I, bring it down through this metallic guide, then there is one more guide at the needle, then through the hole here get it down and now thread the needle from the left side to the right side. Now the needle has been threaded. Take the needle thread down through the center of the pressure foot sole and keep it to the back and put the pressure foot down. This is the bobbin which contains the bobbin thread. This is the bobbin case. The bobbin goes into the bobbin case. The bobbin thread goes via the slit, goes via the finger, comes out. Now when you look at the direction when it is being pulled, the bobbin should rotate anti-clockwise. This finger is known as a tension finger. The tension of the bobbin thread can be adjusted by pressing this down. When we tighten this screw, the finger will put more pressure on the bobbin thread, thus increasing the tension on the bobbin thread. When you want a looser tension, you have to rotate it in the other direction. Hold the bobbin case like this. Slot the bobbin case inside. Generally, when the operator wants to slot the bobbin case, they will slide the sliding plate. With their other hand, they will put the bobbin case and slot it and close the sliding plate. Once the bobbin case is inserted, keep hold of the needle thread and start to rotate the machine hand wheel so that the needle goes down and the needle thread and the bobbin thread get locked up. Once one stitching is over, we can take out the bobbin thread like this. Now you will see two threads, the needle thread and the bobbin thread. Once this is done, keep them like this and lower the pressure foot. And lower the pressure foot. Of a single needle lock stitch machine.